Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Nick Cage Fight Podcast, where we feel the need for speed. However, due to copyright restrictions, we are forced to explain that this speed has to be from helicopters and not jets. I am one of your hosts, Josh, joined as always by Rich and Ryan. How are we, guys?
I'm full tilt boogie for freedom and justice, baby.
I'm bored mostly. I'm bored.
Yeah. And the movie we're here to talk about today is Firebirds, a 1990 released film, rated PG-13, clocking in at a sleek hour and 25 minutes. Remember when movies were this long? It was the 90s. Not anymore. But yeah, let's dive into a kind of odd housekeeping, which I say this on a regular occasion, but sometimes this really does inform us as to what we're about to walk into. And that is definitely the case with this film. So first up, we have the director, David Green, who did a fair amount of TV shit, but the only other like feature films in his CV are Buster, Car Trouble, and Breathtaking.
I have not seen any of those.
Buster is wild. It stars Phil Collins as one of those dudes from that robbery from the 60s.
Of course you've seen one of these movies. Of course you've seen one of these movies, Ryan.
Which it kind of ties into this, because this has a soundtrack by Phil Collins.
So at the end, I legitimately was like, is that fucking Phil Collins? That's fucking Phil Collins.
That's not the first time they played Phil Collins. They played like 2 or 3 Phil Collins songs in this movie. And
then I tried to look up the soundtrack, and all it said on Wikipedia was like it was not released.
That tracks. I don't think this movie was very well loved by anybody but me and like grandpas.
Grandpas who love America.
So here's the thing, and this is because I always do the housekeeping research before I watch the film, because I find that to be pretty useful. But when we get into the writers, this is, I think, the only time I've run into this specific scenario. So there are 3 writers. The first one is Step Tyner, only ever wrote Firebirds, not a single other writing credit. Next up, we have John K. Swenson, only ever wrote Firebirds.
Okay, so we actually have 5 writers technically.
Oh, I only pulled 3 in my
You've
research.
got the story by writers that you're going through right now. They didn't write the screenplay.
Oh, shit.
Yep. And at least I want to say 1 or 2 of them were actors in the film. So I think these were like, they just sort of pitched it, but they didn't actually write the screenplay. The 2 screenwriters are Nick Thiel and Peter F. Edwards.
The storyline was conceived by retired Lieutenant Colonels Step Tyner and John K. Swenson.
Okay.
So that's why.
So here's the thing. The third story by writing credit goes to Dale Dye, who wrote Firebirds and Occupation Rainfall.
And he has a role in this as well as A.K. McNeil.
And his primary profession appears to be acting, because he was in, and I'll cover this again when we get to him in the cast, but he was in Mission Impossible, Platoon, and has a role in this film as well.
He was a firearms instructor for a couple episodes of Entourage.
Oh, there you go. And I'm just going to wing it with the other ones. So first up of the screenplay writers is Nick Thiel, who's known for having written some episodes of Magnum P.I., some episodes of Burn Notice more recently, and a couple of episodes of a show called Voyagers. I'm looking through his credits real quick, and it looks like it's mostly TV stuff, although apparently he did the screenplay for The Associate.
Bambi 2, The Great Prince of the Forest. Fuck Disney.
Dude, the sequels, like the non-theater sequels to original Disney properties, if you've never checked those out, go check the sequels to some of the originals.
Oh, I definitely have. I had younger siblings.
Oh, the Return of Jafar is so bad. The animation is horrendous, and there's no Robin Williams.
Oh, also, apparently, this guy wrote the screenplay to the 1991 White Fang film. I know they've visited that a couple of times, but there you go. And then Paul F. Edwards has a number of, again, TV writing credits. Gunsmoke. Oh my God, that explains so fucking much. This dude wrote 52 episodes of Gunsmoke, which is my father's favorite show of all time.
Yo, is this the dude in the iron lung from The Big Lebowski? What the fuck?
Yeah, I'm trying to see if they had any other feature-length film writing credits. Nothing's really jumping out. A lot of TV stuff. Okay, I'm sorry. Track Down, which is a 1976 film. Oh, he wrote an episode of Kung Fu, the TV series in 1973.
I love Kung Fu. David Carradine's so cool. I wish he was real.
Yeah, so the only other feature-length film in this writer's credits is Track Down, which is not a film I am familiar with.
He also wrote Highballin', which is a movie I am not familiar with, but I did find that on his IMDb real quick.
Oh, okay.
You know, they say on cold, quiet nights, you can still see David Carradine masturbating to a ceiling fan.
Jesus Christ.
I saw a David Carradine movie that I legitimately fucking hated this past week, and I can't even remember the name of it.
He was in some weird stuff.
Yeah, it was like a story by Bruce Lee, but like had nothing to do with Bruce Lee whatsoever.
Well, hey, you know what else doesn't have anything to do with Bruce Lee? Firebirds.
True.
This is very true.
It's like the anti-Bruce Lee.
It'd be better if it did.
Okay, so that wraps up the writers, and thank you, Ryan, for catching my snafu there. I think that's the first time I've blatantly missed some of the writers. I saw 3, and I was like, that's enough. That's enough writers.
Yeah, I saw the story by, and I was like, oh man, that's never a good sign. But
so moving on to cast, starting as always with our boy Nick Cage playing Jake Preston. In my notes, I call him Preston all the time. Just throwing that out there in case anybody gets mad. I think his name Jake is uttered like maybe 3 times in the course of the film.
The only person that calls him Jake is Billy.
Yep. Next up, we have Tommy Lee Jones as Brad Little. You might maybe recognize this kind of obscure actor from such films as the Men in Black series, The Fugitive, No Country for Old Men, Volcano, and most importantly, Batman Forever.
And one Pitbull music video.
It was related to the Men in Black franchise.
Yes,
yeah. Next up, we have Sean Young as Billy Lee Guthrie. She was in Blade Runner 2049, No Way Out, and the 1984 Dune film.
And Bone Tomahawk, which whips ass if you haven't seen it.
Shit. I didn't realize she was in Bone Tomahawk.
She is in Bone Tomahawk, which is a great Western that turns into something very different by the end.
And also a movie we've all decided we're going to watch now called Ginger Clown.
Yes, that's enough. She's also been in some real, like, weird off Hollywood films, and we are interested in a number of them, including a Dune knockoff that looks like it's more Tremors than Dune, and Ginger Clown, which
and
stars
something
Tim
called
Curry.
Accelerator, spelled like an axe, like a hatchet, that looks like some premium schlock.
Nice. I hope it's a futuristic slasher. I'd watch that.
No, I think it's like an action film about a near future invention of some like doomsday device.
I hope it's just a guy with a machine powered axe. That's your doomsday device. It's very slow but truly horrifying.
It's just the pneumatic hammer from that episode of The Simpsons.
Next up, we have Brian Kestner as Breaker. Brian Kestner was in The Running Man, which is a great film. I'll go to the mat for that one. The Monster Squad and In Dark Places. Alana Diamant as Sharon Geller, who's in Stone Cold. No, I don't even know who this character is in the film. I'm going to be honest with you.
No, I have zero idea.
Nick Cage asks her where Billy is one time. She's on screen
high
for
up on the cast list.
She's on screen for like 45 seconds.
Well, listen, this movie has like 10 people who are in it for about 20 seconds each.
Yeah, see, that's the other thing with doing housekeeping before I watch the movie. I'm going on their like billing listing from the internet, and sometimes it is wildly incorrect as to the importance to the overall film. Anyway, she was in Stone Cold, No Place to Hide, and Beyond a Reasonable Doubt. Next up, we have Dale Dye, one of the writers, as A.K. McNeil, who was in, as I mentioned before, Mission Impossible, the first one, Platoon, Night and Day, Casualties of War, and more recently, The Purge, Anarchy.
I didn't realize the purges were still happening.
Oh my God, they're wildly different than each other most times, but they found like they occasionally get over the target without being super ham-fisted. There's one that could basically be a Punisher movie, which is actually pretty decent.
I think I've only seen the first two.
The one I'm thinking of is it has the guy who plays Crossbones in the MCU. I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Oh shit, what is his name? I know who you're talking about.
So those movies slide off of my brain like fucking butter on a hot pan, man.
But he was also in the internet version of the movie Crash, which was called
not the car fucking one, right?
No, not the car
not
one,
the car fucking Crash.
The Oscar bait one.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, no, it was basically like one of those things where it's like a bunch of disparate stories coming together based around one sort of thing. With Crash, it was mostly about crime, I guess, but with this movie,
no, Crash was about racism.
That's true. Yeah, that's right. And this one was about the internet. So it's got like a kid who gets catfish and made fun of at school, and anyway, he was in that movie as well. But in the Purge movie that I'm talking about, it's just he's on a mission and gets sort of caught up in other people's drama during the Purge, and it's very Punisher-ish, but pretty entertaining.
We're still talking about Dale Dye, right?
Yeah, Dale.
Yeah. Because so I just opened up his IMDb, and the thing that plays like the trailer is to a Steven Seagal movie where I don't think Steven Seagal has made one movement outside of pulling a trigger to a sniper rifle. Rob Van Dam is in this fucking movie. I am off the beaten path. I'm sorry.
No. It's fine. I just want to make it very clear. We do not have the runtime in this episode to even scratch the surface of Steven Seagal. Rich, I know you're a fan of Behind the Bastards. Fucking Sean Baby from the old internet does the episodes on Steven Seagal. And
I've heard them numerous times. He's the worst.
So anyway,
I need to know what movie this is, though.
While you're digging into
I already found it. It did not take much.
Next up,
hold on, real
Sniper
quick.
Special Ops, by the
real
way.
Quick.
Oh,
this is the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life. So on the DVD cover, it says Seagal and Van Damme. Now, you think it's going to be Jean-Claude Van Damme, being that he is an actor. No, it is Rob Van Dam, the pro wrestler.
Holy shit.
I actually really like that. That's pretty solid.
It says Seagal Van Damme. And I'm just watching, and all of a sudden I see fucking Rob Van Dam, and I'm like, they did this purposefully.
I mean, that's a teaser move right there. That movie has got to have like 5 minutes of actual Seagal in it.
Is it the one where he's wearing like the sling for his gun way high and like resting his arm?
I've already seen it.
All right. Yep. Yeah, I'm familiar with that one.
He's moving with all the grace of a walrus. All right. We got to talk about Firebirds. I'm sorry. I just had to bring that up.
Next up, we've got Mary Ellen Trainor as Janet Little. This is Tommy Lee Jones's wife in the film. And I had to include her because her past roles include films such as The Goonies, Die Hard, Lethal Weapons 2 and 4, and just a shining gem from my childhood, Little Giants.
Oh, yeah. That movie's good. She's also in Romancing the Stone, which is a movie I like quite a bit.
There you go. I miss it. I stopped at Little Giants. I was like, holy shit.
She was also in Monster Squad. We had another guy that was in that as well.
Oh, that's right. That was Brian Kestner.
Yeah. And I think like one episode of Tales from the Crypt, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that's funny because I'm pretty sure the next guy I'm about to talk about had an episode in Tales of the Crypt as well. Next up and last on my list before I get yelled at is J.A. Preston, who plays General Alcott. And he was in Few Good Men, Body Heat, and Real Life. The movie titled Real Life. I'm also certain that he is a person in real life, but I think I saw Tales from the Crypt in his rundown as well. So who did I miss that everybody's angry about?
Nobody.
Although if you didn't mention the fact that Prescott was in Air Force One, that is a movie I would like to shout out because my audio clipped out for like a second there.
No, I didn't mention that, but that
Air Force One rules.
That is a good include. So that wraps an odd housekeeping, in my opinion. We got a lot of hands in the pot and I'm not sure what's going on. But we can move on to the actual events of the film. And the opening shot of this movie is the movie poster. They used a still from this for the movie poster, which is just several helicopters in front of a red setting sun.
It's the coolest shot of the movie.
I think they're model model helicopters too, because if you look at the credits, there was an extensive model making and painting team. I think the only time you see real helicopters is when they're on the ground.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Otherwise, this movie would have been too expensive to make. But we get some scrolling text at the beginning, and I included all of it word for word in my notes because I want to set the tone.
We have to parse this, I feel.
So it reads, our message to the drug cartels is this: the rules have changed. We will help any government that wants our help. When requested, we will, for the first time, make available the appropriate resources of America's armed forces. Signed, George Bush Sr. I don't know if this is in quotes. I don't know if this actually occurred. Is this what happened?
I can Google it. Give me a second.
Yeah, I'm about to say I don't know. This is the most Reagan film to ever Reagan ever.
Well, I mean that does kind of track with George Bush Sr.
Well, yeah, he was a Reagan clone. They popped in a cloning machine. Yeah,
yeah.
And towards the end, you can tell that the cloning was wearing off. His face was getting all droopy. He looked like the guy from Men in Black at the end who was wearing the skin suit where his skin was all fucked up. That was George Bush Sr. at the end.
Yeah, D'Onofrio.
Respect on
oh, okay.
But yeah, no. At a certain point in time in American politics, they cut you off from your adrenochrome and you melt like a candle.
Well, that's the pact you sign when you become president.
Yeah, like at a certain point, we got to put you out to pasture, and after
and your skin's gonna melt off.
Yeah, you are gonna melt. But this, by the way, struck me as just an insane premise. Just the America being like, got drug dealers, we'll send Apache helicopters to blow them up. That's
yeah. What are we? The Philippines?
It's an amazing concept.
They were
very curious if it has any sort of actual real life basis here. But also, if it isn't, can you use like a president's name like they said something in a fictional story? If you can do that willy-nilly.
Specific quote, so it's very possible that wasn't actually like verbatim from it.
So I mean, here's the thing: just because I've been watching Mr. Robot, they intercut a lot of like Barack Obama, like talking about the things that are happening in Mr. Robot. So I guess you can.
Like actual clips from his real speeches?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that I think is fine. I don't know if you can make up a fucking quote and attribute it to an actual US president.
I'm sure that noted hater of drugs and black people, George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, he's probably fine with it.
I wouldn't be fucking surprised if this was a real thing. It was just because it was in quotes. I was
that's why they have the random scene of them busting up a crack den, because George H.W. Bush said, like, yeah, you can use my name in a quote, but you have to you have to arrest some black people.
Quota attached to it. But yeah, also people intercutting like president's speeches in fictional stories happens all the time. One of my favorite films, Killing Them Softly, which was kind of a whole analogy for American capitalism told through a crime story, has Obama on TV consistently as we follow these criminals through this particular series of events. But anyway, after we get that quote,
it was actually Bush, and I did find the specific speech. It was an address. Let me see if you're going to give me the actual information. Oh, beautiful. They don't. But it is on the Washington Post as quoted by George H.W. Bush.
That's fucking crazy to me personally. Just like, hey, if you have drug dealers in your country, we'll give you all of the strength of the American Air Force.
Now, I actually want to be super clear about this movie right now, is outside of this scene and them like busting up a random crack den for no reason, there's not a whole lot of drugs going on in this movie. It's mostly just helicopters.
Yeah, that's true. They don't do any sort of setup to be like, this is the awful shit that's happening. It's just, hey, here's a couple of news clips where like in fact, there's one like news clip where I'm fairly certain it's weed that they're showing, not like cocaine or anything. It's just like a bunch of bundles of weed that they found. But yeah, they do cut those in every now and again. What was that?
The devil's lettuce.
Jazz cigarettes.
Yeah, fully justifies blowing the shit out of non-American people with Apache helicopters.
Anytime I think of like a weed bust, I just think of Super Troopers when like they have the governor of Vermont come and she's just like 10,000 like 10 kilos of what? Marijuana. Then why am I here?
Yeah, why the fuck am I here? Absolutely. So we get shots of flying helicopters intercut with Cage's character Preston speaking to a bunch of men sat around a shadowy table, right? And he's sort of narrating this flight mission that we're seeing clips of, and the cartel has an actual attack helicopter that blows up multiple US military helicopters before Preston manages to get away, which did crack me up because like later in the film when Tommy Lee Jones is training people, he's like, you can't run away from a helicopter fight, despite the fact that the film opens on that exact circumstance occurring.
And has another instance of people running away from a helicopter fight.
Sort of, yeah. But that cracked me up because
and also super fun fact, the people that Nick Cage is talking to in this is actually just 5 Hillary Clintons.
Well, it is the Department of Defense that he is talking to.
Because it is the deep state. There is a pizza parlor in DC where they are holding children.
No. This does not work out for radio personalities. That is parody, 100%, listener. We are not making that claim.
I was going to go like, is it? But yeah, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. Just get some pizza. It's delicious.
Yeah. So anyway, so Preston explains what happened, on this mission that they were flying. And the Department of Defense is like, thanks for the information. Now get the fuck out. We got to talk about what we're going to do. And Preston is like, what we got to do is we definitely got to stop these awful, terrible drug dealers. They killed my friends and shit like that. And they're like, thanks for that, but please go wait out in the hall. And essentially, it looks like the DoD comes around on it. They're like, all right, well, we can't just drop out. We got to come up with something. Let's pull out the big guns. The big guns in this case, in this movie, is just a big ad for Apache attack helicopters.
This film was actually funded by Halliburton.
It was probably funded in some part by the US military. They do that shit all the time. They do that to your Marvel movies, folks, if you were not aware.
Yeah, Miss Marvel was like half funded by the US government.
Yeah. But essentially the DoD comes around to the idea and they decide that they're going to go for it. And so some of the generals or whatever that were involved in the meeting come out and they speak to Preston and ask him his thoughts on the Apache helicopters and whether or not those could, fix the situation for him. And Preston does insist that it's the only aircraft that's going to be able to stand up to this cartel's helicopter, single attack helicopter, as far as we're aware of at this point in time. And then the scene cuts to Fort Mitchell, where we see Tommy Lee Jones's character for the first time. He's Brad Little, the guy the general specifically, we need Brad Little to come teach these pilots how to fly Apache helicopters. And so we get the first of several classroom sort of scenes where Little gives a speech about what they'll learn, aerial combat, blah, 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 military helicopters. I will say this, we can take a minute now just to explain our thoughts on Tommy Lee Jones. Personally, the man has a great clipped cadence that he does perfectly, and I think that's one of the reasons why he excels in roles where he is playing some sort of state agent. He's got a presentation with his lines that is perfect for the movie image of a military guy, a cop, whatever.
I love how he says helicopter. He calls it a helicopter.
Yeah. Yeah.
The whole time, helicopter.
There's a lot of weird things that he does in this movie.
There
More of which we'll
That's why
get
this
to.
movie rules. Tommy Lee Jones is like the glue that holds this whole picture together.
So Little then takes Preston out to a grounded Apache helicopter, and they get in and take off. And like Little is giving Preston like pointers and tips and shit like that. And Preston is like, we get some flight scenes, and I'm not really like a big I don't know shit about military aircraft or anything like that, but I do know that Preston in these scenes is whipping this bird through the air. He is just doing loop-de-loops and a bunch of weird shit that even an idiot like me, I'm like, oh, that looks like it might be difficult to pull off in a multi-million-dollar, death machine.
Yeah, I didn't know helicopters could move like that.
I still don't know if they can move like that. I don't know
Yeah,
how
that
much
might be movie magic.
Yeah, exactly.
That might be some of that model making shit I was talking about earlier.
But yeah, and Little establishes his role as throwing out like really tight, quippy phrases and sayings. I would have written more of them down, but he rips through them so fast. I did not write them down word for word. But just imagine Tommy Lee Jones,
just
doing
being
that.
Tommy Lee Jones. Like that's what he does in every movie.
Yeah, except for Batman Forever. Which is apparently a role he hated because he couldn't stand Jim Carrey.
That doesn't surprise me. It's like I just imagine the cameras off and him just going up, hey Tommy, your kid's vaccinated. Shouldn't have done that, Tommy.
I like to imagine him like doing his insane over the top Two-Face, like going to the dressing room. He's like, I was in The Fucking Fugitive. So after they land, like Preston has a moment where he like talks to the helicopter. He's like, I'd marry you if I could. But after this first flight on their way back to the base, Preston runs into a woman helicopter pilot, and this is Billy Lee, and he hits on her pretty hard, and it's not received well. And to top it all off, like there is backstory here, but they do not deign to give you any information about it for like the next 30 minutes of this film at least.
And even when they get to it, they barely touch on it.
Yeah. So it seems really harassy. And then like Little even says something to him. He's like, you got a problem with women in the military, son? He's like, no, I don't have a problem with women in the military. Just that one. I was like, I don't understand what this dynamic is supposed to turn into.
So I was waiting for a transition, and it's like I don't really have a helicopter transition in me, I don't think. So it's just like go to our Patreon.
That's a good idea.
Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Get in your whirlybird, take a little trip over to patreon.com/Nick Cage Fight. Instead of shooting bullets, just fill that motherfucker with quarters and shoot and like shoot like $3 worth of quarters at us every month. Like, yeah,
that's like
you'll
12 whole quarters.
That's 12 whole quarters at high velocity. You're gonna do some damage. We're gonna need some Flex Seal to deal with that.
Yeah, now I'm wondering if there is a market where we just offer to let people shoot us with quarters as a way to make money.
You get to keep any of the quarters that stick in you.
That's I'm less interested in this as a commercial idea now.
Yeah, we're not doing that. I don't feel like getting shot with quarters, but cagefight.com. Oh my God, no, that's not right. Patreon.com/Nick Cage Fight. This movie has taken it all out of me.
This advertising for the UFC now, I think. Speaking of, I'm very curious what our random ads are going to be this time. Is it some sort of Amish hand cream? Is it an ad for a seminary somewhere? I don't know why they're targeting our audience for that.
Maybe it's Dana
illegal?
White.
Illegal ads?
Yeah, illegal ads.
Yeah.
Last week we were talking about clicking that button that would get us illegal content.
Is it going to be Dana White threatening to slap us in the face? Because that's a show that's on television right now.
Yeah, that just as a quick aside, that is terrible It's, don't get me wrong, I've seen the clips of it. It seems wildly entertaining, but it's not good for, I think, people
Anybody?
in general.
So
Like,
the world is slowly sliding towards RoboCop. Eventually, we're gonna have the I'll buy that for $1 guy on TV.
I mean, maybe we're slipping towards Running Man. That is honestly, I'm not proud of it, but I would watch that.
Yeah,
we're slipping towards something. Yeah, just in a world where, like, you know, we know about concussions. Whose idea was to be like, you know, it'd be make a lot of money. Two people standing there looking at each other longingly, just waiting to get hit in the face as hard as you can.
Just fucking headshots. Like, I feel like they were like, listen, what's the best part of the UFC is like when somebody gets punched so hard in the face that they lose consciousness in a really dramatic fashion. They're like, can we cut down to just that? And the doctor's like, you can't just let somebody punch somebody in the face with, you know, no ability to defend themselves. And they're like, what about a slap? And the doctor's like, no, it's the same fucking thing. It's just as bad for your brain. And they're like, no, slaps, that is our in to this. And they just ran with it. Ignored the doctor from then on out.
Yeah, they said, fuck you, nerd.
Yeah. All right, ad break.
Ad break. Let's see if it's for slapping each other. I don't know about you guys, but I am slap happy after hearing those ads.
Okay.
For slap fight or whatever the fuck it's called.
I'm fucking up the edit because I'm just laughing over the slap jokes. Anyway,
I really hope the algorithm picks up on this.
So we get the first. By the way, this movie likes certain formulas, and it's going to go back to it several times. We've got classroom scenes. We've got general getting a briefing scene. We get sometimes helicopters in the air. And then we have a weird romance subplot that just doesn't make any fucking sense. This next scene is one of the general getting a briefing bits. And this one kind of cracked me up because they're briefing him about this cartel pilot who's some kind of mercenary. And the cartel is, and this I also chuckled at because I don't know how much of this is US propaganda or how much of this is actually rooted in reality, but they're like, the cartels are getting a lot of support from Cuba. And I'm like, timing on this seems a little bit suspicious, so I'm not sure if there's any basis in reality.
Oh, you mean Cuba, whose major export to the world is doctors?
Yeah. So when I heard that, definitely quirked an eyebrow, and I put a question mark next to my notes. I'm like, I don't know about this. And the cartel is supposedly using the support from Cuba to spread their drug operation to other countries.
My understanding of this actually is that it was like the CIA who was doing this shit, and Cuba was used as a middleman for a short period of time in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, that fucking tracks.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they have no money. We have stopped them from having money.
Yeah, sanctions are legitimate acts of warfare, folks, and Cuba has been under that cloud for fucking forever. It's kind of awful. Anyway, so we also get the first glimpse of Little trying to get out of just the teacher role and get an actual combat flight role in this mission. And the general or commanding officer is not really having it. Then we also get our first scene with Little's wife, who is walking around with him on base. He seems kind of cranky. It is his birthday. He doesn't want to be walking around. He wants to be at home eating ice cream weirdly or something like that. But she walks him into a room and there is a surprise birthday planned for him. Basically, everybody, all of the military folks that we've seen on the base so far are there. And he has a birthday cake that is like in the shape of a fucking helicopter. All of the candles are on the rotor blades.
It's the perfect birthday cake for a 5-year-old boy.
It really is. It's
Yeah, I would love that cake.
Yeah, but also I think it's hilarious because the helicopter looks like it's made out of cake, and then
it is. Yeah, they cut into it.
No, they don't. A split second later, the helicopter is gone, and they're just cutting into the sheet cake that the thing was landed on, basically.
Oh, okay. I must have missed that.
I don't know if it was supposed to be some fondant wrapped monstrosity or whatever. But the cake that they actually slice is the sheet cake underneath. Preston, of course, takes another opportunity to, as far as I could tell in this, at this point in the movie, just sexually harass Billy Lee again, and she rebuffs him once more. So the next scene is relatively entertaining. We get introduced to the flight simulator, which is a big box on like some weird hydraulic jack that people in the military go in to play video games while the room shakes around.
That thing's real too. I think they actually went to a military base to film those scenes.
Did they use the actual graphics?
Yes, I think so.
Good God.
It's just a video game, kids.
Give them a PlayStation, man. It's just, it's the same.
Dude, it's 1990. There wasn't no PlayStation to be had.
Fine, give them a PC. PC gamers. It's fine.
Yeah.
Just play Doom.
Play X-Wing.
There you go.
Play TIE Fighter. Play anything.
TIE Fighter is a better game out of
I
the,
like
the
TIE
flight
Fighter.
sims. Yeah.
Play Command and Conquer. That's like war.
Yeah, basically. But no, that's actually, I'm sorry, I have to do a brief aside because this did crack me up when I saw them in this, because it reminded me of one of the most recent weirdo discourses online where somebody had posted that he was angry with his wife because she introduced him at a work function as a fast food restaurant manager, which he is, and he was mad because she didn't introduce him as a pilot, which he's not, but he spent a whole bunch of money to make like a realistic flight simulator and put hundreds of hours into it, but has never flown an actual aircraft in any way, shape, or form, nor is he licensed. And he wrote this whole insane rant on it. And people are like, you are fucking crazy, guy.
So which fast food restaurant does he manage so I can stay away from that one? Because it seems like he's going to shoot up that place kind of soon.
Yeah, no. Because he would insist on doing it with some kind of aircraft and they're never going to let him legally fly one. I think you're safe.
All right, that's good. That's good.
I don't know if he mentioned it or not. I honestly can't remember, but I just remember being floored by that. And I was like, God, the stuff like that makes me feel better about myself in the same way that stuff like Cops and Judge Judy used to make me feel better about myself 10 years ago, where I just watched that. It was like, I think I have a lot of problems. And then I throw one of those shows on. I was like, I don't have problems like these. God damn.
No.
If I had to guess, it's probably like fucking Chick-fil-A or like a Hardee's Checkers that dude works at.
I actually think it was Chick-fil-A, but I'm not 100%.
Chicken's bad.
So
how do you fry chicken and it's still wet?
So Preston and his gunner, who is Breaker, who I don't start including his name in my notes for like another 40 minutes of runtime because nobody likes referring to each other in this film. There's very little use of names, and also there's not a whole lot of consequence as far as their impact in the story. But they play this simulator, and the whole time Little is outside like amping up the difficulty with the guy who's operating it, sort of off of their scheduled itinerary. But Cage is fucking killing it. And it's a pretty good contender for unhinged scene because he is screaming like repeatedly, I am the best. I am the best. And my favorite one that I wrote down specifically was all gone. Bye bye.
This was a very, very good unhinged scene. I thought it was the unhinged scene, actually.
It was pretty fucking good, but there's a couple
I was gonna say, I think my shout out for unhinged scene is probably the pantyhose with the periscope.
Yeah, that's
you said, so here's the thing. The way I look at that, it's good unhinged. It's not Nick Cage being unhinged. It is Nick Cage receiving Tommy Lee Jones's unhingedness.
I see. I could actually agree with that. It is Tommy Lee Jones's absolute batshit idea. So yeah, no, you're right.
Right. That's
I blame this one on the props department. I don't give Jones credit for that one.
God, I love that scene so much.
It's a
very good
scene. Anyway, so Little ramps up the difficulty again, and it requires the pilot and the gunner to use this weird monocle thing on their helmet, which basically is transmitting sensor data. I think the premise is where it's like you can't rely on what you can actually see. outside the front of the aircraft. So you just have to essentially fly blind with the instruments themselves. And so they have this little monocle thing that feeds them data, and they have to respond to that and the other instruments in the console in order to appropriately fly and shoot at things. However, Preston has real difficulty with this. He starts sweating and then ultimately crashes in the simulation. Now, again, just to clarify, Preston seems to be a very capable pilot, and Little literally ramps up the simulation training to the hardest mission, I think the fellow operator says, and he whiffs his first attempt at it. He actually is also pretty upset that he crashed it because, again, he was all very happy with his performance up to this point. Then he goes looking for Billy again after his stint in the simulator, and he gets directed to the laundromat on base. And this is where we finally get some context to his constant harassment of Billy, which was they used to date and then they stopped, and Preston is really insistent on rekindling that particular tryst. Billy actually this time sort of flirts back, but not with like her whole heart. She's like half committal about it, but he does fucking swipe a pair of her panties from her laundry basket and then like stops her as she's about to leave and is like, hey, you forgot these, and she's like, keep them, which is a weird interaction, especially given how they've talked to each other before. The movie doesn't do a good job of building this to any sort of logical conclusion. It's kind of just a weird fucking sexual harassment fever dream for the most part.
Yeah, it does fall into that trope of like early 90s, like not very well written action schlock where the romance is sort of a foregone conclusion. So there's not any actual development of it. It's the weakest part of the movie.
There's just my problem is just there's no logical progression.
Yeah.
And they don't give us a frame of reference at the beginning. So I'm just looking at it, I'm like, holy shit, the US military is going to be on the hook for a horrible hostile workplace lawsuit at some point. And then even when they do clarify, I'm like, this still doesn't really justify most of these interactions. It still seems, but again, 90s shit. They could have very easily with some writing edits progressed it in a way that seemed normal instead of fucking absurd.
Yeah, but they wouldn't. This is the era of JAG, and like every romance on JAG is just this.
That's fair enough. I don't disagree.
I constantly forget JAG exists, and then
somebody every brings uncle's it up. Favorite show.
Somebody brings it up, and I die a little bit every time I remember it exists. It eats away at me.
Bad.
Nobody brings it up anymore. I mean, JAG JAG used to be a big fucking thing.
It used to be the uncles. USA Network.
Among uncles. Yeah. It's like JAG and Night Court. Everybody wanted to talk about JAG.
Okay, I'll talk about Night Court all day, though.
Yeah, I'm about to say, Night Court was legitimately great.
Yeah, Night Court fucking rules.
I'm just saying they were mentioned in the same breath. Don't come for me. I'm just giving you.
Look, the uncles got that one right.
Every once in a while, uncles get one right. It's fine.
A broken uncle is right 2 times a day.
Usually between beers. Yeah. So the next morning, Little is out for a run, and like the other people, like the troops that he's teaching and stuff like that, all pass him on the run. And I initially sort of glossed over this scene when I was watching it, but in retrospect, it's kind of important because it's the start of a setup, right? I think the prologue of it is Little asking to be sent on the combat mission and not just be a teacher, and the general kind of grumbling about it. And then this, when he's out for his morning run and all the other guys just pace right by him, and he has to stop to catch his breath before running on alone because everybody else has passed him. It sets up essentially this mind space that Little is in and has to overcome. It has to do with his character arc, I think, very strongly in this film, in that he's there teaching for a reason. He's the best at what he does, but he is falling out in his just turned 40, which I think is a little bit excessive, but he's no longer able to keep up with what the cream of the crop military is supposed to be able to do, and he's a little bit resentful of this fact. So this is the first establishing element where we see it demonstrated, not his resentment, but his inability to do the same things as the people that he's teaching. At least that was my take on it. Like I said, in retrospect. So
yeah, I agree with you.
So and also like the cleverness of actually setting something up, the movie does not do this a whole lot. So I just wanted to give it credit where it's due, because this is a good setup for that. We get another one of the classroom scenes where Little is teaching air-to-air combat tactics and explaining, the basically describes it almost like a game of cat and mouse. It's like whoever gets spotted first is the loser, whoever doesn't get spotted first is the winner, and then gives them some grilling on like proper firing angles and things like that.
I mean, he also plays with some toy helicopters in the scene, which is fun.
Oh, well, I mean, that is almost every classroom scene is him playing with toy helicopters, which makes me think I miss my calling as a teacher. But yeah, no, that does feature prominently. So in the next scene, I guess, I don't know if this is supposed to be on the base or in town or whatever, but they're the military folks are at a club mixed with some civilians. Preston and Breaker are there at the bar, and Billy is on the dance floor with just some guy. And Preston goes to try and cut in, and the guy gets a little lippy with him. And of course, it turns almost immediately into a badly choreographed fist fight. But Preston waxes the fucking floor with this dude. It is no contest and just fucking knocks him out.
Quick fun trivia for this. That nightclub was a strip club that they retrofit to look like a nightclub for the 3 days of filming that they rented it out.
Makes sense.
Yep.
And also
that's why you can see like the bars just off screen, like the bars that they dance on.
Poles, I think.
Poles, yeah. stripper pole.
Also, big shout out to Nick Cage's fighting technique, which is just not there.
All the fight scenes in this make me think of like the old timey fight scenes where it's just like a single wild haymaker thrown and like just an inserted slapping sound, and then the guy goes down.
So that totally tracks for one of the writers working on Gunsmoke, where that happens every fucking episode.
Yup. Yes, it do.
But like Nick Cage action sequences when he's sneaking around with a gun and has to look menacing with a gun, very good. Nick Cage having to beat up somebody outside of Kiss of Death, because that was great. I have not seen a good Nick Cage like actual hand-to-hand combat scene.
I remember Bangkok Dangerous having a pretty good one with Cage, where he wipes the floor with some thugs.
Oh, we'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, we'll get around to that one eventually.
Now I'm just stuck remembering the fucking body slam out of the cab of a Mack truck scene from Kiss of Death.
Yeah,
so beautiful with his weird fucking tank tops. God, that
and his weird haircut.
Yeah, that movie ruled more than we gave it credit.
That's absolutely true. I wasn't even here for that episode, but I would have juiced it up a bit more, honestly.
And him dancing the sadness away with the plant.
Bench press is a stripper. How can that movie not be good?
I still am not over. I have not stopped my search for a version of his tank top from the movie where it's a tank top but he has little holes cut out at the ribs. I cannot find that anywhere. If you're a fan of the pod and you know where to get one of those, please write in, because I need one.
I think you got to make it yourself. Just get yourself some scissors.
His had stitching around it, like very visible stitching around it. That wasn't homemade. They made this at one point. The company probably went out of business because the business model made no fucking sense. Like, everyone feel a breeze on your ribs while wearing a tank top. Anyway, so Billy is not impressed by this show of Machismo, and she walks off after this fight, and Preston rushes to get her attention. And Billy basically explains that she is not interested in this kind of bullshit, like him fucking needing to fight people and, basically his casual misogyny.
But why not? Fighting.
Okay, I was going to say
fighting, much like smoking cigarettes, are the coolest thing you can do.
Yeah, but she says it's like this caveman shit. You're in the fucking US military. Your entire job is to go out and kill people. If that isn't caveman shit, I don't know what is.
Yeah, but she's not a caveman.
She's a cave lady.
It's different. But I do find it funny that Preston's knee-jerk reaction is to respond with more misogyny. He's like, what? That's not weird. I just think you're a woman and you need to be at home with children and cooking and shit. What is weird about that? And she's like, this is what we broke up about in the first fucking place. And sort of just storms off. I don't know what Preston was thinking about that during that scene. He's given the script what's wrong and he just doubles down.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive, his lack of ability to understand any sort of social cues or what somebody is explicitly telling him to his face. So the next scene that we get is another one, again, very formulaic. The general is getting a briefing, and it's about how the cartel has set up an airstrip somewhere in South America.
Argentina specifically.
Okay, in Argentina. They don't even call it Argentina in the actual, when they get to the actual mission. They're just like South America.
They shout out the specific desert, which I Googled, and it's in Argentina.
Gotcha. So yeah, they explain that the cartel is setting up this airstrip and that this mercenary dude is providing air support, and they think something big is going to go down there. And then we get a scene of Billy flying her helicopter, which sort of, I guess, in keeping with the weird gendered roles that they've set up for themselves, is she's flying a scout helicopter while
a little girl helicopter. Anybody can fly one. Doesn't have a gun.
I don't know if they were doing this intentionally to keep everybody in their like character trope arc or whatever, but you know, it's very specific.
I'm going to say yes. It's the early 90s, which is really just the 80s, which was very much of a women can do anything that men can do, but just not as well.
I think it's like whoa. Women are allowed to be in the military. Like they can be helicopter pilots, but they're the scout pilots. The men get the ones with the rockets.
Yeah. Listen, okay? Women can work in the office. They're just the secretaries.
That's yeah.
I am waiting for my girlfriend to just barge in here and be like, "What the fuck did you say?"
We're criticizing a film. We didn't write it. 5 other guys wrote it.
Yes. five other white dudes, not these white dudes.
But Preston and Breaker are following in an Apache. Also, for a PG-13 film, there were a couple of moments where I'm like, wow, this got a PG-13 rating. This isn't one of the more explicit ones, but Preston is explicitly over military comms channels doing a bunch of sexual innuendos and sexual harassment to Billy while they're flying.
What do you mean? That's just another day in the military.
Yeah, man, that ain't gonna get at the R. R rating is a certain number of profane words or some boob or boob. Yeah, or boob on screen.
I thought there was boob on screen in this film.
I don't think there's boob on screen in this film.
I did not see any boob on screen.
All right,
girl boob. They were not bouncing.
We're gonna have to roll back and check the tape on this. I'm not 100% certain, but I think there is boob in this film. But we'll figure that out. That's gonna be an episode 2 thing. So after this clip of them flying around with the scouter helicopter and the Apache, we get another shot of Little trying to get on the mission and continuing to be told no by the general. This sort of advances the issue with Little's complex about, you know, teaching the younger generation how to do what he is an expert at. And so the very next scene that we get is Little in the gym with boxing gloves on, sort of hitting a speed bag, and Preston comes in and starts hitting a heavy bag, and Little goads him into a bit of a sparring match. Nobody's wearing protective headgear or appears to have mouth guards of any sort, and they're not even in a ring. It's just in an open gym.
Nah, that's some wimp shit.
Yeah, apparently. So Little tags Preston a couple of times, and I'm like, oh shit, is this gonna be him proving himself? And then Preston knocks him the fuck out almost immediately after getting tagged up a couple of times. And so yeah, that doesn't go, I think, the way that Little wanted it to go, but he gets knocked out and he is not feeling super great the next morning. And I think this is a good place to break. for episode 1. We've gotten through a fair amount of the movie. And to add to the issue, this is an action film. There's not a lot of talkable about scenes to a certain extent, or at least they don't take the normal amount of time that we do to break these down.
Yeah, there's like a 15-minute stretch that you could just say, and then they fought with helicopters.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go hard with the bants on those scenes, but I want to save at least a fair amount of my notes for the next episode. But I mean, we're developing something here. Like, they've got some story going on in certain areas, and they're kind of fucking up some weird subplots. But I will say, my first blush, especially at this point in the film, this far through, this is some quality 90s trash.
Yeah, it's trash, but it's fun trash.
Right? But there's levels of trash, you know.
I am not enjoying this trash. Take this trash out,
That's
please.
fine. It's not everyone's trash.
Yeah, exactly. But no, all of this is just a ripoff riding on the coattails of more action trash for the most part. Don't come for me over referring to Top Gun that way. It is what it is. It's fun to like trash. Okay.
I mean, if there was a dumpster, this was in it, and it was on fire, I'd get a whiff and I'd be like, ooh, it's got a little piquant to it.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying it's my position has always been it's perfectly fine to like trash. There's different levels of trash. Sometimes you find like an old fucking tape player and you're like, I got some old tape. I could fucking, somebody threw this out, but I can make use of it. Go for it. Sometimes you find cool shit in the trash, like swords. It happens, okay? Just because it's trash doesn't mean you need to feel ashamed. But if you
I have 3 separate record players in my house that I trash picked.
There you go. But if you try and tell me that it's not fucking trash, that's when I'm going to have a problem. That's when I'm going to have to get us on the same level of reality where you embrace your love of trash. It's fine.
Oh yeah, no, I love trash. This is just not my particular. It's not my particular brand of trash that I.
It doesn't have the right stink for you. Everyone's got their own flavor of stank that they need to, that they get drawn towards the dumpster.
Yeah, it's different and it's fine. It's fine, but we will be back next time to wrap up this film. In the meantime, if you want to find us on social media, you can do it on Twitter at cagefight_pod.
You can also check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/NickCageFight. $3 a month gets you every single episode without ads. We also do other things such as Patreon only content, which, guys, we should really be watching The Wrestler soon, right?
Oh, it's happening.
We should watch The Wrestler.
It's gonna happen. We'll probably do that next. I mean, I don't set the schedule, but I think that would be next, right? Maybe. Who knows?
At some point we will watch The Wrestler, but Josh has a kind of a crazy week this coming week. I'm thinking after that, I want to actually try a Twitch live stream.
Ooh.
Just to try it out, just to break some stuff up. Maybe we'll watch, I don't know, maybe we'll watch like a Nick Cage adjacent movie. Maybe watch Ginger Clown, actually.
That's a
Not
possibility.
a bad idea.
And don't forget our inevitable spin-offs. We've got Rockabye Baby, or We Will Rourke You. We haven't really settled on one there. We have
No. I actually just say we call whatever we do next like Willem Dafoe fight or Mickey Rourke fight.
We have Willem the Friend or Dafoe.
Nope. It is Willem Dafoe fight.
Willem Dafoe fight.
Rourke fight.
I have too many for the Rourke one. Between a Rourke and a Hard Place, I like that one. I don't come up with these. I receive them from a higher power. But yeah, no. Who knows? Who knows what we'll do? But I'm down for a Twitch watch. That could be fun. So, as always, listeners, thanks for listening, and we appreciate you.